Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Rowlph Reviews. It's a show where Rowlphie reviews things. So let's get into it. What we're going to be reviewing today is the Bambu Labs P1P 3D printer. So a little bit about me. I've been in the hobby of 3D printing for about 3 years. It's been really useful for cosplay as well as just making things that are just useful in life. So first to start off with is the price. This printer is $599 last I checked. And it's roughly been a year since its release, and I've had it for about a month or so. This printer is equipped with a slew of features such as Wi-Fi capabilities, auto leveling, all sorts of slicer features, a webcam, a light. The stock light that it comes with is pretty dim, so I made my own. And the webcam's frame rate is really slow. It's like watching a PowerPoint slideshow. But the benefit is that you do get to see what's going on inside. One of the other features that they have is that they have a phone app, so you can actually control parts of the printer using your phone. For example, if you're out of the house and you left a really long print going on and you check your phone and you see that it's failed, you can actually stop it with your phone. But overall, they market it as a higher end printer, which is why it's so pricey. Fair warning, mine does look a little different because I've modified mine a lot. This printer doesn't come with panels or anything like that. First, let's talk about the quality of the prints. Here, let me get in a little bit closer to you guys. So this is the very first thing that I printed on the P1P as soon as I had unboxed it. It's a benchy that kind of tells you what is wrong with your printer if it has any problems. For example, if the overhang building has some problems, or if there's bridging problems here, kind of. But overall, I'd say the quality is very good. I mean, everything here on the sides and everything like that is so smooth, and everything came out just right, just the way that I wanted it to, which I was very surprised about when I first had unboxed the printer. So, quality is really good, which leads me to the next characteristic of this printer, which is its speed. The speed at which this thing can print at is pretty darn fast. Faster than my older printers, which I barely use now because this one just kind of beats it every time. This printer is capable of printing at 250 millimeters per second and comes with 4 modes, which are Standard, Sport, Ludicrous, and Silent mode, which is actually slower, but more quiet. Not only that, you can fine-tune how fast you want it to be in the Bambu slicer by inputting a specific number in millimeters per second, but I wouldn't recommend pushing it beyond its limits. But with that speed comes a significant amount of noise. For me, I have all of my printers in my bedroom. Sometimes I would have prints that would span up to 12 hours or 14 hours, so they would need to print overnight. And when I would leave the old ones on overnight, the most that they would make is just a low humming noise, which would allow me to sleep. But I've tried printing with this overnight. The servos were so loud that they just kept me up all night. And this was before the panels, which is why I built an enclosure. And boy, was it an uneasy journey. With my obsession of trying to dampen the noise came a domino effect of all sorts of other problems. So obviously the first problem was, number 1, noise. I wanted to dampen the noise because it was too loud. But once I finished the enclosure came problem number 2, which was heat. So it basically turned into an oven, and all of the heat was being trapped inside of the chamber. It did contain the noise, but all of that heat was just left inside. And with this heat came a slew of other problems. First off, the heat was causing a significant change in my prints where the quality was absolutely terrible, even failing a bunch of prints because it was just too hot. Another problem with the heat inside of the printer was that it also compromises the electronic components inside the back of the printer. So if the heat lingers long enough, it could damage everything inside of the printer and kill it. So in order to fix that problem, I had to do 3 things. The first thing was making sure the electronics were safe, especially the MC board. The MC board has a heatsink on the back of it that keeps it cool, but if you're going to be using higher temperatures, it won't be enough. In order to keep the electronics safe, I bought a little fan that goes onto the heatsink of the MC board so that it would keep it cool. It required a bracket to print, as well as JST connectors and a bunch of soldering. Once the electronics were safe, I moved on to the next problem, which was just the heat inside of the chamber. So I built a vent system that pulls all of the air out using an old spare Intel fan. And finally, I bought an auxiliary fan that'll blow air at the level of the nozzle so it'll just actually properly cool everything. But in the end, I still suffered with problem number one, which was noise. All of these fans added inside of the printer just were also really noisy, and nothing was really solved. Here, let me give a demonstration and try and turn all of these fans on. Fan number one, which is the extruder fan. Fan number two, which is the auxiliary fan. Fan number three, which is the chamber fan. This is with the door open, and then this is with it closed. So yeah, pretty noisy. The only real benefit to doing this is that now I can print materials that have a higher melting point, such as PETG or ABS, which are way more finicky to print with than stock PLA. Overall, would I recommend this printer? Well, sort of. The quality is there, and it's very nice. You can really tell it is a high-end printer, but the two things that I mainly have a problem with is that the price is pretty high, and the noise is driving me insane. The only real solution to the noise is just having it in a separate room, like a garage or something. And you can still use its Wi-Fi features to send projects over rather than having to manually plug in an SD card. Not only that, Bambu Labs is a newer company, so all of their printers are newer as well. We don't really know the lifespan of these printers, so maybe they'll print really good for the first 3 years and then just die ultimately after that. So that's one of the things to consider. Actually, they recently had a problem where printers just kind of started up in the middle of the night, printing whatever was sent to them last, and if there was anything on the bed or anything like that, it would crash into it and printers started damaging themselves. It was awful. But again, I wouldn't do all of the DIY stuff that I did because it was finicky and troublesome and really annoying. They actually have a separate model called the P1S that's essentially like mine because it has panels as well as a bunch of accessories. And for those of you that have the P1P, you can actually upgrade the P1P to a P1S as a separate kit. They actually announced the upgrade kit while I was finishing my own printer enclosure, and I was so mad because I could have just used that instead of having to go through all this trouble. Had I had known about all the problems that would come with enclosing the chamber, I would have just never done it at all, or I would have just bought a P1S instead. But even then, with the auxiliary fan in the P1S, it would still be super noisy because I'd say that fan is the loudest of all the fans inside of this thing. Hey everyone, so I was actually trying to 3D print something last night, and there was a jam inside of the direct drive thing. There was a jam inside of here, and I couldn't pull the filament out, and I couldn't push it through because something blobbed in the middle. So I needed to take it apart and, you know, get it all out. Simple as that. I mean, clogs happen like every so often in 3D printers, which is no problem. But the thing is that in order to access this little container, there's this lever for the filament cutter, and inside this lever there's a little screw that attaches it to this piece here, and that screw is something that you need to remove in order to take everything apart. And it's only one little screw, but my screw was really stripped and I could not get this thing off of the damn extruder, and I had to basically tear it off just to get to this component. I had never taken that direct drive apart before, and this was not a good experience because I was up for hours trying to get this one stripped screw out so I could take it apart and fix my 3D printer. And now it's just, I can't even print anything because I don't want to put that screw inside of my machine anymore because, again, I won't be able to take it out. They do provide the piece online for you to order again if it's broken for some reason. But yeah, in general, that's not a good experience to have for your printer. If you're going to advertise about quality and then sell printers with stripped screws, then that's not quality. Yeah, I just wanted to rant about that for a little bit. It was awful. It was so terrible. Okay, bye. I was thinking that maybe mine was just unluckily defective and that I was the only one suffering from this, but turns out there are also other people on Reddit that also reported the same problem. But the moment I fine-tuned everything, I started to get prints that were really, really nice quality again. Although I had to start printing without the lid on top because the heat was still too much for the printer, still, the results are looking really good, and being able to print again with this quality really brought back my favor for this printer. So, would I recommend this printer? Well, yes. One of the things that I thought about when buying this 3D printer is that with a price point like this, I should be able to put a bunch of 3D printing problems behind me, but in reality, that's probably not going to happen. Not with this printer, not with any future printers, because you're going to run into some problems eventually with 3D printing, and that's natural. So, I'm going to give this printer a 4 out of 5 Rowlphs. On the good side, it makes really, really good quality prints, with extreme speed. But on the bad side, it's a little noisy, and there was that screw incident. But overall, it's a very solid printer. Thank you all so much for watching my very first review of product. I hope it was informative enough. Thank you for watching. Bye!